Hello, hello, hello. This is the Winningest Show with Adam Wins. I am here with Vera Anderson, the renowned legacy coach. So before we begin, I want to tell you a little bit about Vera and what she does and why we have her on the Winningest today and why she's so important for you and what you're really going to learn from her. So Vera Anderson is a dynamic legacy coach who focuses on sustainable growth for her clients. An entrepreneur and mentor with private equity background and global resources. She provides customized guidance to fund managers, C-level executives, and family office principals striving to reach their full potential in business and in life, and helping them create an intentional legacy. Love that. Vera is a co-host of a by invitation only interactive events on delegation and other topics critical to executive level success. We're going to post all of Vera's contacts in below after the video. So welcome, Vera.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Hey, it's a pleasure to have you. It's definitely a pleasure to have you. So legacy. That's what really pops out for me. And I think that is probably what differentiates you from anyone I've seen in the business. That they don't really talk about legacy. Tell me why that's so important to you and why that's so important to your clients in becoming the winningest.
Absolutely. I think the perception that people have is that the legacy is something that you leave at the end. The reality is legacy is something that you build and create every single day. So you can be very intentional about it, or you can just leave it to chance. And when you leave it to chance, the way you build your business, the way you live your life is very random, rather than if you're being intentional about how you're showing up in the world as a business person, as an investor, as a family member, as father, mother, child, the quality of your life shifts, the level of fulfillment that you experience and people around you experience is completely different. So being more intentional leads to a better legacy.
Nice. Now, let's take myself for example. So obviously a lot of the people you work with and deal with are at the highest level.
Yes.
So they don't have many peers, and that's often the trouble that I run into. So for example, I have sometimes an issue with making a good judgment call on this person. Are they good to work with, or is that going to be good for my legacy as far as what I'm leaving for my family? Is this choice right? Is that choice right? How do you assist in that process? Like, is that something that you're there for? Because I don't have many people I can just pick up the phone and say, hey, buddy, my friends are talking about football games, and I don't have a lot of peers that actually could understand when I'm talking about $100 million deal, or I've got this gold mine over here. It's way over their heads. So how do you relate to that, and how are you helpful in that guidance?
Absolutely. Well, one of the big things that I work on is helping people make those large life-changing decisions, whether it's in business or do I, change my residence, pick up and move my family to Europe? Do I double the size of my business? Do I sell it and I start something else? If I'm exiting, and retiring, what does my life look like after that? So a lot of those questions come up for my clients, and the way that I work through that with them is, the way you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. And you figure out what are some of the smaller decisions that you need to make in order to be comfortable and confident when making the large decision. So we basically break it down and figure out what answers do they have, what answers do they need to get, and then reconvene and continue that process until they're at a space where they are certain in terms of what the direction they want to go.
Nice. So do most of the successful people you're working with, what are the results like, let's say before working with Vera and after working with Vera? Because for myself, I've got a lot of thinking to do all the time. And a lot of times it helps to have somebody to think it out with, because I think most all mistakes or errors or judgment calls in business is just because you didn't take the time to think about it. So from my understanding is that you're the person that you take the time with and say, hey, here's what my things are that I'm looking to do, or that I need to do, that I need to think about. And then we think it out together and kind of talk it out in that manner. Is that, am I hitting it close to that?
Absolutely. And then the biggest part of it is realizing that all of us have blind sides. We all have those spots where we're either too emotionally attached or we're just not seeing. And having an outsider perspective who is not emotionally attached to the situation, and being able to have this just, here are the numbers, here are the facts conversation, is very helpful for my clients.
Okay, super. And before someone becomes a client for you, what is a good practice? Like, what do you like your client to look like? So who is the person? Is it someone who's really disorganized and you can make them organized? It's somebody who already has some good practices in their lives. They're on their way. What is your dream client?
It really depends on the individual and circumstances. I love working with a variety of different individuals. The main thing that I find typically when a client is going through some form of a transition, whether with their business, their personal life, again, they're looking to grow and scale, or they're looking to change the direction of where they're going, and there is a lot of uncertainty that's surrounding them and a lot of moving parts. That's typically when they engage me. But beyond that, what we do is we go through this entire process that they've developed, from being in private equity, from having my own experiences with health and coaching and all of those other components, and enable them to really figure out what is it that they want out of life. Not just the business life, but out of their own life, because we only get this one life experience, or at least this one term, right? However you want to define it, whatever your beliefs are. So you might as well live it for yourself in the way that, gives you that sense of adventure, gives you that sense of accomplishment and fulfillment. What I find people, even in the very high-powered positions, are typically trying to live for somebody else. They're either living for their business, or they're living to justify some belief, or they live to appease their parents. And that's the way that they make decisions, instead of just taking a step back and saying, what do I want out of this life as a human being? And how do I create that support and that structure for myself to really have that experience?
Absolutely. And I think as leaders or people at higher levels, we often get our heads spun a lot, because there's a lot of people coming to us with a lot. I'm constantly like, this idea, come here, I've got this, I got that. And I think because, I've been working on my book, I've been working on my focus, making sure and helping guide other people. That's the whole purpose of this show, is to put people on the right path to get to the highest levels. But even myself, with trying to focus on it and being super focused on it, I get taken off track of what I really want. And sometimes other people's wants, and because I care about other people and I want to help other people, and it's definitely sometimes easy to get taken off focus. As I'm not a Hindu monk, so I'm not like sitting here or constantly just in meditation. So a lot of that stuff comes in. What kind of practices do you suggest for people, aside from being a monk and just, totally focused on that one little grain of sand? How do we focus as entrepreneurs, as investors, as businessmen, and not hear all that racket outside of everybody wants something from you?
The shiny object syndrome, right?
Yeah.
So the way I help my clients filter all of that noise is through a practice that I call energy management, right? You have a lot of activities, you have a lot of people, businesses, investments. And the way that we look at it is, what gives you energy and what takes your energy, right? Things that give you energy are typically good for you. Those are the good relationships. Those are the good investments. Those are the right business to be in. Things that drain you of energy are the bad relationships, are the, the businesses that or assets that you might have invested in that are toxic. And they shouldn't be on your balance sheet in the first place. So understanding, those two different categories, and then actually going through and eliminating things that are draining you of energy. And in some cases, it's just, getting out of those bad investments, getting out of the bad relationship. In other cases, it might be looking at how do I change the dynamic of that situation or that investment. And then in some cases, it means getting the right kind of support so that even if it's, let's say it's accounting work, right? And you don't love the accounting, it might be hiring a CFO to run your business. Right. It might be hiring a CPA, a bookkeeper to outsource that too. So you're not dropping things and then stressing about what's going to happen, but you're actually delegating them out and giving yourself the support and also the time to do other things that give you energy.
Nice. Yes. Energy is key. And above energy, I think wellness. So when I take on clients and I work with clients, and sometimes I break my own rules, which is really bad. But generally speaking, I psychologically test everybody that I work deeply with. So I make sure that they have to take a mindset test to see who it is I'm working with. Because sometimes you can go through interview processes and you can sit there and somebody, you think they're one way and then they turn out to be a completely another way. Mm-hmm. So what I really like to do is be preventative in everything. Including those that I work with. So they all take a psychological test. On the other hand, they also have to be, excuse me, they also have to be physically healthy, because I think that's, wellness to me, and that's the focus of this show, is one level above wealth, because it's paramount to everything we do. And it interferes. Like if you're working with someone and they're not taking care of their health, they're going to have the flu and they're going to have missed meetings. And then that's going to be a stumbling block for you. And then they're supposed to be at this deciding signing. It's supposed to happen today. And then it gets pushed 2 weeks and you're like, oh, now my schedule is off. So how do you work with people in their wellness, and how much of a priority is that for your business?
For me personally, it's a huge priority. I am definitely in the game of longevity. So I'm also looking at what's my biological age, right?
Yes.
Always trying to decrease that. I've cured myself of rheumatoid arthritis.
Nice.
By going into the root cause and fixing my lifestyle, fixing my diet, making sure that my body is balanced in a way that, it can function long term. So to me personally, it's a huge part of my life. And with my clients, depending on what stage I get them in, a lot of people think that self-care is selfish.
No, it's the number one rule of everything in the world.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have to retrain, right? And if you are working 14, 15 hours a day, how do you squeeze in an hour of gym time? Or how do you squeeze in, 20-minute meditation or an hour meditation? There's no space, right? So again, you kind of have to go through this process of
there's always space.
And figuring out, maybe starting small and starting with 5-minute walk and then building that up to an hour gym time a day. So it really depends on the individual and where they are. But how many people do you know who have started raising capital or in the process of selling their business and end up in a hospital?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Right? I mean, listen, I'm a very big fan in a lot of ways of Grant Cardone. I don't agree with everything he says or does. But my first encounter with Grant Cardone, the first time I ever met him or saw him, was on the internet, on Facebook, and he was in a hospital bed having a heart surgery. He was in a gown and a gurney. Not that I probably should have been a red flag there, but I noticed that he started to prioritize that may not have been a priority before. So he's on the path to doing that, obviously. But I think that's just someone who's at a super high level where you would expect that wouldn't happen, but actually it happens more than you think. And especially I find that people's most emotional tie is, in a lot of cases, it should be towards their family. In a lot of cases, it's misdirected to their money. Yes. And, that emotion can lead to a lot of, because I don't know how I'm going to make it again, or, I got lucky at this, or I got this chance, or I'm too old, or I'm too young. It's a lot of excuses that really go into, what they're doing. So how do you stop how do you stop the excuses? So, I mean, because that's what I see. Every single person that I encounter in this world has an excuse. Either it's mañana, or yes, I just don't have enough time, which everybody has enough time. That's the number one excuse. That's just total BS. How do you handle that situation with your clients and really not allow them to make excuses? How do you keep them accountable?
Well, it's really a shift in priorities, right? If your priority is being healthy and being successful, then that's what you will go for. If your singular priority is to build a business and make as much money as you can, everything else falls by the wayside. So you need to have that buy-in as an individual in terms of what are you trying to achieve in your life. And the thing that I keep finding with entrepreneurs, business owners, even, I mentor startup students at a university here. Everybody's so focused on work and how do I grind it out? And it has to be hard and I have to push through. Yeah. The reality is your best ideas do not come to you at 3:00 in the morning, unless you're a coder, right? You're not feeling at your best. You're not performing at your full potential when you're stressed, when you're drained of resources, finances, you have nowhere to sleep, and, you're constantly in the state of fight and flight. So if you go into a business saying, I want to have more time with my children, I want to have more flexibility, and then you get into the grind of it, what happens? You have less time with the kids, you have no health insurance, and you don't have the paycheck, right? So none of the people who started a business ever said, I want to go into it and suffer for the rest of my life. So why do they, right? Why do they? And that's because they didn't say, I want to be in a business that is being supportive as much as it's being rewarding. And if you go into it with that kind of mindset where I want to have my lifestyle and my business, that's what you will build. But that's your focus.
So it's focusing on what you want, which I always find I have a whole chapter of it in my book that most people, they kind of forget about exactly what they want. I mean, like I said, I forget it daily. I have to refocus daily on what I want. So what kind of exercises do you run through with your clients, and how do you keep them laser focused? Because a lot of times in business, you find people, machine gunning it, saying, okay, here's what I want. And it's this machine gun approach where the only way to really get what you want is if you're sharp shooting. I just saw the world record holder in Texas just shot a 3-mile target, 3 miles. So how do you get that far and that accurate and stay consistent like that?
Well, first you start by taking a step back and saying, what do I want out of my life and business? Not purely what do I want out of my business? Because if you structure your life where the business takes up 90% of your time and then the rest of the 10% you get to sleep, where does the relationship, where does the health, where does the, vacations, adventure, learning, travel, where does all of that come in, right? You don't give it space. So if you think about what do I want my lifestyle and business to look like, then you structure things very differently. And then it's just a matter of, simplifying, not creating more complexity, but creating more simplicity, because with complexity comes uncertainty.
Absolutely.
And that's what brings stress, and that's what brings a lot of anxiety. So just simplifying and creating more and more space. And in fact, the more successful CEOs are the individuals who are able to outsource and delegate a lot of things in their business and their life. So they actually have time on daily basis and on weekly basis to be away from work, to be away from the office, to just sit and think strategically and look at the big picture. Because you're not paid to execute. You're paid to create the big vision and then delegate the operations.
Absolutely. I love that simplicity. And complexity obviously is, in the case of business and investing, is usually the root of all evil. We keep it very simple, try to keep it very simple in what we do, but it's always easier said than done. So we need someone like you, Vera, to actually keep us on point and on path. So let's talk about yourself a little bit here.
Sure.
What is it? You're always helping people. What is it that Vera wants? So what is it that you want? Because I think a lot of the direction to you is helping others. What is your wants?
I am an addict when it comes to travel and experiences. So that's something that I've enjoyed. And my first international travel, I was actually born in Moscow and
Nice.
grew up there till I was about 12. And my grandfather was a diplomat. And he and my grandmother were based in Indonesia. And when I was 7, I ended up leaving Moscow right after the New Year's with the snow and the cold. And my grandfather took me down to Indonesia for half a year. And
Nice.
I land in this place that is basically exact opposite of everything that I've experienced living in Moscow. And, they had exotic flowers and they had all these beautiful colors and this culture and all these weird fruits and, orchids were puzzling to me because how can you have a flower that has no scent? Right? It was just such a discombobulation, and I felt like Alice in Wonderland. That was the experience, right? You kind of fall through the hole and you end up on the other side of the world. And ever since then, I've realized the more I travel, the more I know how little I have seen. And I've now lived in Paris, I lived in London, I've lived in a couple places in US. And it's just really having an appreciation for different cultures, understanding those different cultures and, how people live, how people function, and then being able to incorporate all of those components with the work that I do is, phenomenal. So my goal in life is to continue building my business and scaling in a way that I'm working with super impactful people. I'm not looking for large numbers. I'm looking to work with people and support people who are at the top of their game and really want to make a difference, not only in their business and in their community, but also in the world.
And you will travel to them. So that's even a perfect component of your business that anybody, wherever you're at globally, Vera will travel and definitely put you on the right path. So in wrapping things up here, Vera, I want to understand a little bit more how we can work together. So I'm a client. I want to hire you for your services. I have roadblocks. I have, I stumble. I want to make sure that I'm on the right path, that my legacy is going in the right direction, that my decision making is on point, and that I have another set of eyes on, whatever subject matter it is. What does working with Vera look like? How do we get started? And what's the whole process?
Absolutely. So the whole process is designed around the individual. And it starts with figuring out if we're the right fit. Because if we're not, there's no point of discussing, the engagement.
Right.
So I start by having a conversation. If that conversation goes well and we feel comfortable with each other, then we proceed into a complimentary session. Because there's thousands of different coaches, thousands of different styles. I want to make sure that the way that I work is most effective for the individual. And we actually deal with a specific issue, right? We don't just talk, we actually dive in and come up with a resolution so they can experience the impact of the work that I do. And then from that point on, if it's a right fit and they want to continue and work with me, then we talk about what would our engagement look like. And we co-create the whole experience because I want it to be the most supportive to you in the way that you need to be supported. So I have clients
Nice.
who want to meet, they want to do check-ins every 30, every week for 30 minutes. That's their tempo, that's their speed. I have clients who want 2-hour sessions. I have clients who are meeting weekly. I have clients who are meeting, a couple of times a month. So it really depends on your on the way that you need to be supported and the
Right.
way you pick. And the same thing
Nice.
with the investment, because really what you're doing is you're investing in yourself. And it has to be meaningful to you because not only are you investing resources, you're also investing time.
Yes.
And it has to, it has to match your level of engagement.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been super helpful, Vera. I think that anyone that wants to get to the winningest levels in their business, in their life, needs to speak with you and really have that conversation. Where do they go to find you? I know we have some links from you we're going to put down at the bottom, but if they're just listening to this, if they're listening on audio or just seeing the video, how do we reach you?
Absolutely. Well, my website is globalelementsconsulting.com.
Okay,
And
that's globalelementsconsulting.com. Okay,
yes.
great.
So if you go to my website, there's actually a button that you can click to schedule a call. So if you're in a stage where you're ready and you're looking for a coach, absolutely schedule a call with me. Let's have a conversation and see where that takes us. If I'm not the right fit, I have other coaches that I've personally worked with in the past and I know very well, so I can make some recommendations and referrals as well. And then LinkedIn is another platform that I'm pretty active on. So just find me, Vera Anderson, Global Elements Consulting, Legacy Coach on LinkedIn and connect through there.
Nice. And I love that form of legacy. It's very important. Not enough people think about it. And I think you really started that on the topic of discussion for everybody that's striving to be the winningest, that legacy needs to be on your mind. So thank you very much for being on the show, Vera.
Absolutely.
And we hope to work with you and everybody out there. Work with Vera. She is excellent. Make sure that you check her out on LinkedIn. Check out all of her website and is there some type of consulting call that they get with you? Is there like a session that initially they do?
We'll do a 30-minute call to get started.
Super.
And then see where we take it from there.
All right, super. So everybody listening out there, this is Adam Wins. This is the winningest. We have Vera Anderson. She's going to do a 30-minute call with you. Is there a charge for that call for my listeners? Oh, nice. So we have a free consulting session with Vera to see if you're a fit. Hopefully you are. It really will take you to the winningest levels. Thank you, Vera.
Absolutely. Have a great day.